As with our major key videos, I want to do a minor key video where rather than just break down the structure of the minor key melody, I want to actually work through it in real time so that you can see the thought process behind this and how you do it. Just a worked example which I think will really benefit people who are trying to figure out how to do this. Okay, so I've taken this one from not sure, I think it was the 2012 exam paper, and this is in the 2012 paper they were given a melody in the minor key. So how do I know it's the minor key? The very first thing I need to ask. Well, I've got two flats at the beginning, which means it's either in B flat or it's in G minor. Now there's a couple of reasons I know it's in G minor. First of all, you can see it actually starts on the note G, and if you were to work out the notes of the chord of G minor, they're G, B flat, and D. And all the strong notes, all the strong beats in this opening bar are based on the notes G, B flat, and D. You've got G, you've got B flat, you've got D, you've got B flat here. The rest, the A and the C, are just passing notes. So I know that the chord in bar 1 is a G minor. So that kind of tells me that it's in the key of G minor. But if I want to be sure, if I'm not 100% certain, I need to look through the notes that they've given me, the 4 bars they've given me, and see if at any point there are any accidentals. And let's see. Okay, there is. The very last note is an accidental. It's an F sharp. Now, just to be 100% certain that we're in the key of G minor, as opposed to anything else, which obviously it wouldn't be, but just so we can kind of confirm it for ourselves, we need to see that accidental, that F sharp. Would that be the 7th note of the chord if we were in the key of G minor? So if we were to write out the notes of G minor on the scale of G minor, it would be G, A, B flat. It's got a B flat, C, D, E flat, because we got an E flat, and then the 7th note, so G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, then the 7th would be F. And is this an F? It is. So that F is raised to an F sharp. That's the 7th note, so that we now know that it has to be in G minor, because that sharpened note, that note with the accidental, is the 7th note of the scale of G minor. So that's how we work it out. So we definitely know that this is now in G minor. So now we can go composing according to the rules of the minor key rather than the rules of the major key. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, first thing I'm going to work on is bars 5 and 6. So this is quite an easy part. It kind of eases us into it. We're just developing bars 1 and 2. So we're doing something similar to bars 1 and 2, but not exactly the same. So what will we do? Okay, well first of all, I'm definitely going to keep the exact same rhythm as bars 1 and 2. I don't want to change the rhythm because the rhythm's part of the overall feel. And I'm going to start on a G note, just like I would have done, just like they've done. Okay, and I keep going up. I can follow the same contour that they've got. Alright, I want to change it a little bit. They've got a leap here from a B flat to a D. So I'm actually going to do that slightly different. I'm going to leap early. I'm going to leap from an A to a C. Just do that. So it leaps from A up to C, and that kind of frames the note B flat. Okay, so if you leap from A to C, it kind of frames this note. Instead of just going straight to B flat, you do the 2 notes around it first. That sets us up for a B flat note, which can then continue up, make it a different. Okay, so it's not that different, but the main thing is we've still stuck to this chord of G minor. So we're still basing our thing around the notes G, B flat, and D. They're our main notes. Our strongest beats have G and B flat on them, and then we end on a D note as well. Okay, and that also plays the role of kind of leading us up nicely to this E flat note that I've got here. So D leads really nicely up to this E flat note that I've got at the beginning. I'm going to change the rhythm slightly in the second bar because I want to show you that you don't always have to keep the exact same rhythm that they've given you, but you do have to keep it similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap around the rhythms from the two halves of this bar. Instead of having 3 quavers in the first half, then a crotchet and a quaver in the second, I'm going to have a crotchet and a quaver in the first, and I'm going to have 3 quavers in the second. Okay, so crotchet, quaver, and remember I said it's going to lead up nicely to this E flat, so I'll have my crotchet on an E flat. And I will have I'm going to have a C here. Oops, that's a D. Let's put that down. Okay, and in the second half, I want to have 3 quaver notes. So here's what I need to be thinking about here. I know that when it gets to bar 7, I'm going to be modulating to the relative major. So the relative major of G minor, if we remember a theory, and if we break it down, the relative major of G minor would be B flat major. So I need to modulate the B flat major, and if you remember from my previous video, that involves using chord 2 and chord 5 from B flat major. Okay, so chord 2 in B flat major will be C minor, so I'm going to have a C minor here in bar 7, and chord 5 in a relative major key will be an F major. That's in bar 8. So in bar 7 I need a C minor chord, and in bar 8 I need an F major chord. So in the last couple of beats here in bar 6, I need to think about how am I going to lead to the chord C minor. How am I going to lead in this little bit here somewhere to one of the notes of C minor and set myself up nicely for that modulation to the relative major. Okay, so let's have a think about it. So I've got E flat and C here. I need to be thinking, the notes of C minor are C, E flat and G, so I need to be landing on either a C, an E flat or a G here. And you know what, I think I'm going to try and land on a C, the home note. It'll really establish the chord, it's the home note of the chord. So I need to be thinking about somehow framing, like I did over here with the A and the C framing the B flat. I need to be thinking about framing the note C here in some way. So I'm going to do that by going, I'm going to go D, C, B flat, which kind of leads right down and leads back into a C. It really frames the note C and leads right back into the note C here. So it's a really strong way of modulating, of getting into that C minor chord for the modulation. Okay, so what will I do next? I'm going to keep this rhythm here. I'm going to keep the crotchet quaver followed by 3 quavers. And it has to be on a C minor chord. So I need to be thinking, my notes of C minor are C, E flat and G. They need, some of those notes need to be on my strong beats. So I'm going to start on a C, as I mentioned before. And you know what, if I'm doing a crotchet quaver here, I can lead really nicely up to an E flat note here. I can do a quaver on the D, and it leads me really nicely up to an E flat note, which is also the chord of C minor here. Now what I need to be thinking is, I need to be landing on a note of the chord of F major, which is chord 5, somewhere in bar 8. So I somehow need to land on one of the notes of F major. The notes of F major are F, A, and C. So I need to land on either F, A, or C somewhere at the beginning of this bar. You know what, I'm going to end on F. I'm going to drop down to an E flat and then back up. So I got this E flat D, E flat thing. And then that leads really nicely up to an F note right here. And then from my F chord, I'm just going to go straight down the notes of the chord. So it's going to go F, C, A. I'm just going to come right back down to an F here. I'll do a crotchet quaver just to kind of keep the rhythm they've had and just not to have it all quavers the whole time. And you know what, I'm going to go for A here. So this is looking really, really nice now. I've developed bars 1 and 2. I've got my chord C minor here, and F major here. So that's 2 and 5 in the key of B flat, which is my relative major, which is what I'm trying to modulate to. Next, I want to have my sequence in the relative major, and as you can see again, I've set myself up nicely with the last note A here to lead into the note B flat here. So I've got chord 1 in the relative major set up really nicely here. Relative major is B flat. I want to start my sequence on a B flat note there. So for the sequence, I'm going to keep the rhythm from bar 1. I'm going to keep just all quavers. And I'm going to do something. I want to have my strong beats really emphasizing the chord of B flat major, because I really want to establish I'm in a different key now. I'm not in G minor anymore. So I'm going to do, oops, that should be a C. So I've got B, C. I could just keep going up, B, C, D. But what I want to do is I want my strong beat, which would be beat 4 in 6/8 time. I want that beat to be on a D note, because that's one of the main notes of the chord of B flat major. So I'm going to jump over the D here, like I've done up here. I framed the note of B flat. This time I'm framing the note of D, so that I come nicely back down to that D note here, and just lead right back down, like that. Okay, it's just a really good way of establishing that B flat chord. Instead of having B flat C D here, I jumped over the D, so that I've now allowed myself to put that D on a strong beat, and it really helps to establish that D is one of the main notes of the chord there. I want to do my sequence next, so all I really have to do is the exact same thing, just a step lower or higher. I'll do a step lower. It could really, either one would really work, but I'm just going to do a step lower. So it has to be the exact same thing. Again, I have to jump, because I'm doing a sequence, I'm doing exactly what I've done here, so I have to jump over that C, and then try and frame it coming back down. And that's my sequence. It's done. It's a pretty easy thing. I mean, if you do it right in bar 9, bar 10 writes itself, because you're just copying bar 9 and moving it up or down a step. Next we need to think about our imperfect cadence, and we're back in the key of G minor now. After we've done a sequence, we go back into the key of G minor, into our original key. And our imperfect cadence is chords 1 to 5, as you may remember before. So in the key of G minor, we're going from chord 1 to chord 5. Chord 1 is going to be in bar 11, chord 5 in bar 12. Okay, so chord 1 is G minor, so we're going to have a G minor chord in bar 11. Chord 5 is D, so we're going to have a D chord in bar 12, so G minor to D. So in bar 11, I really want to establish and outline the notes of the chord G minor. So that's the notes are G, B flat, and D. Okay, so let's think. How will I do that? I'm gonna start on G, because we've already led really nicely down to that with our sequence, and that's the whole note of the chord, so that works really, really well. I'm going to just kind of remind myself here that I'm in the key of G minor by doing an F sharp note. It's like a lower auxiliary, lower chromatic auxiliary note, is what it's called when you go down. Just for anyone who's interested, those things when you drop down and back up, it's called an auxiliary note. And if it's got an accidental in there that's outside the original key, it's called a chromatic auxiliary note. Okay, so I've got a lower, that means I'm going down first, lower chromatic auxiliary note there. It's not really too important to remember that term or anything, but it's just something to know. The main reason I did this, the main reason I wanted to put that F sharp in there again, was just to show the examiner that when they're looking at it, that I know I'm in the key of G minor. I understand that I need, when I'm using the note F sharp, not including the places I've modulated obviously, like here, when I'm using the note F sharp, it needs to be an F sharp. I know that, I know how to write in a minor key, I know how to tell when something's in a minor key. I just really want to show that to the examiner. So I just wanted to kind of get that in there. I've got my G, my F sharp, and G, and I'm in the key, I'm using the chord of G minor here, so I want to really outline the chord of G minor now. So I'm going to use another note from the chord of G minor, and that's B flat. And you know what, I'll use another one, I'm just going to use G again here. So we've got chord 1 here, really well established. We've also used our chromatic auxiliary note just to show the examiner that we know we're in the minor key. Next we need to use chord 5. So chord 5 of G minor will be the chord of D. So the notes of the chord D, they're the ones that we really have to use on our strong beats here. The notes of the chord D are D, F sharp, and A. So, and there's ways of working all the notes of these chords out. I'll go through it in detail in a later video. It's something, if you've been doing the Leaving Cert at this point, you probably know how to do it already, but I'll go through it again in a later video anyway. So I really need to outline the notes of the chord D, that D, F sharp, and A. So I'm on a G here, so I'm not going to jump all the way down to D or jump all the way up to D. It'd just be a massive leap, and there's no need to do that. I'm going to go to either F sharp or A. Either one would work. They're both notes of the chord D. It's both stepwise movements, which you can't really go too wrong with. I'm going to do A. There's no particular reason. I'm just going to. You could use either one as long as you can make it work. I'm going to use A, and I'm going to keep it as all quavers because it leads really nicely up to a D, which is another one of the strong notes of that chord. Leads up to a D note on another strong beat. And I want to get that F sharp in there again because F sharp is one of the really strong notes of the chord D. So I'm going to come straight down with the chord D here. That needs to be sharpened. Straight down with the notes of the chord D at the end here to really outline that D chord. Okay, so I've got my imperfect cadence. I've gone from chord 1 to chord 5. Next thing I need to do, bars 13 and 14, is again just what I've done up here. I'm going to develop bars 1 and 2. And again, this is quite an easy part to do. I somehow need to get from... I want to have G and D on my strong beats again, just like I did here. You don't have to, but it has to be chord 1, so it has to be either G, B flat, or D on those strong beats. And I'm going to do G and D this time. So I'm going to change the rhythm slightly, not much, but I'm going to... If I do change the rhythm, if I have two semi-quavers here instead of a quaver, it just allows me to get up to that D on the strong beat quite easily. Okay, how I've done that is it's gone. I don't have to do any leaps. It allows me to go all stepwise movement from G all the way up to D if I just have those two semi-quavers instead of a quaver in there. It's just another little way to develop it. if you look at the original, they just went G, A, B flat, and then leaped from B flat to D. I just wanted to get, as a way of developing it, that extra note, that C note in there somewhere, and I did that by having semiquavers instead of quavers here. It's just a little way to develop it, it's nothing major. And you know what, I'm going to keep their same 3 quavers here, because repetition can be a good thing. As long as you don't overdo it, it's a really, really good thing. Alright, if we think back to part 2, some of the main notes they gave us were E flat and C. They really outlined chord 4, C minor, which you might remember from back up here. C minor is made up of the notes C, E flat, and G. So I kind of want to do what they've done here. You know what? I'm going to do it by just reversing what they've done. Instead of going E flat, D, C, like they've got here, I'm going to go C, D flat, sorry, C, D, E flat here. So I've just reversed their 3 notes. What I need to do next, and this is, it's kind of a little bit of something a little bit different, something I haven't shown you yet, and I'm going to do a later video on it. I need to lead, if you remember correctly, we have to have a perfect cadence at the end. So that means we have to have chord D, chord 5 here, which would be D, and chord 1 here, which would be G minor. So it's going to be chord 5, D, chord 1, G minor. So I need to lead to one of the notes of chord 5 here. So that's, I need to lead to either a D, F sharp, or A at the beginning of this bar. I'm going to have it, I'm going to go with an F sharp. Okay? Now, if I want to lead up to that F sharp, this is something a little bit different. In the minor key, normally we only sharpen that 7th note of the minor scale, which in the key of G minor you know is F sharp. Sometimes you use something which is a little bit different. Instead of using that normal G minor scale which we looked at, which is sometimes referred to as the harmonic minor scale, we're going to use something called the melodic minor scale. And the only way that's different to the previous one is that we raise an extra note. As well as raising the 7th note from an F to an F sharp, we're going to raise the 6th note. The 6th note would be an E flat. We're going to raise it to an E natural. We're going to just put the 6th note up as well as the 7th. We do that, the only times we do that are if we're ascending, if we're going up the way. So we're going to say up, 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 like this, instead of down the way. So when we're going up, and we're going through a little sequence of notes of kind of like stepwise movement. So let's say like this, we got a D, and let's say normally we'd have a E flat in here, and that would lead nicely up here, and we go to our F sharp, and we're on chord 5 and everything. That looks great. It looks like, you know, you've got some stepwise movement leading up to the note of chord 5. The only problem is, if you were to break this down and look at it on a piano or a guitar or any instrument, you would see that this note, E flat, moving to this note, F sharp, it jumps by a tone and a half. It jumps by a whole minor third, which is quite a big jump, and it doesn't sound very nice when you listen to it melodically. So to do that, we raise this one as well. So instead of being an E flat, we're going to make that an E natural. Now, instead of that big jump from E flat all the way to F sharp, we just got 2 smaller movements from D to E natural to F sharp. And that's the only time we do it. It's when we sharpen that note in a minor key, when we sharpen our original note, so our 7th from F to F sharp, it creates a big gap. We do it because it's necessary. It creates that leading note from the F sharp up to the G, and it creates a really, really good sense of cadence. But it creates problems for us when we try to have a melody that goes from that E flat to the F sharp, because it makes that big huge jump which just doesn't sound melodic. It doesn't sound good at all. So we fixed that problem by also raising that 6th note, and now we don't have that big jump anymore. We've just got a small jump from D to E natural, and another small jump from E natural to F sharp. And it's just something to it fixes that problem. It leaves us with a raised 7th for a strong cadence, and it also gets rid of that problem that's created by raising the 7th of having that big gap there. So it's just something we do. It's sometimes referred to as a melodic minor scale. You don't need to think about it in those theoretical terms. You just need to remember that in the minor key, if you've got this ascending passage where you're going up to that 7th note, that raised 7th note, if at any point you're going to have a big gap between the 6th note and the 7th, that big minor third, you just raise the 6th as well. It solves the problem. Okay, but I'll go into that in more detail in a later video. So let's go back to our melody. So we've got our F sharp. We need to outline the chords of D here. So that's D, F sharp, and A. Notes of the chord D or D, F sharp, and A. So I'm going to have F sharp goes right up to an A here. I want to come back down because I want at the end to have like a real climax rising to our note. Though I want to have it going from a low note up to a high note so that we've got a real sense of climax at the end. And I can't do that if I'm already up really, really high. So I'm going to come back down on chord 5. And I'm just going to do it by coming straight down the notes of the chord. So it's on A, I go F sharp, D, A. It's a really, really easy way to do it. And that puts me in this position here where I'm landing nicely on Do. But like I said, I want it to be a high Do that we finish on, so I'm going to go back up now. I'm going to go straight back up and end on our high Do note instead of a low one. And that is a melody finished. So let's just have a quick listen to that so that we can all hear what it sounds like.